Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. Mob justice, often referred to as vigilantism or crowd justice, is a phenomenon where a group of people take the law into their own hands, often resulting in violent and extreme actions against perceived wrongdoers. The psychology behind mob justice is incredibly complex and involves several key factors that contribute to its intensity and violence. In a crowd, individuals often lose their sense of personal identity and responsibility. This is known as de-individuation, a psychological state where people feel anonymous and less accountable for their actions. In this state, people are more likely to engage in behaviour that they wouldn't normally consider, such as violence. The anonymity provided by the mob gives individuals the feeling that they are less likely to face personal consequences, encouraging them to act in ways that align with the emotions of the group, no matter how violent. When people gather in a group, their attitudes and actions often become more extreme. This is known as group polarization. In the context of mob justice, individuals may initially feel anger or frustration, but as they interact with others who share similar feelings, their emotions then escalate. The collective outrage intensifies, leading the group to act more aggressively than any one person might have done alone. The crowd amplifies the belief that extreme actions are justified and necessary. Emotions can spread rapidly throughout a crowd, almost like a fire. It's a phenomenon called emotional contagion. In a mob situation, fear, anger, and excitement can quickly escalate as people pick up and mirror on the emotions of others. The energy of the crowd fuels itself, pushing individuals to act in violent and irrational ways, driven by the emotional momentum rather than rational thought. Mob justice is often fueled by a sense of moral outrage and perceived righteousness. The group may feel that the justice system has failed, leaving them no choice but to take matters into their own hands. This creates a sense of moral superiority where individuals believe their actions are not just acceptable but necessary to uphold justice. This can lead to extreme measures because the group feels they are doing the right thing, even if it involves violence. In a mob, the sense of personal responsibility is diluted. This phenomenon is known as the diffusion of responsibility, where individuals in a group feel less responsible for the consequences of the group's actions. The larger the group, the easier it becomes for people to justify their behaviour, thinking that everyone else is doing it, or that I'm just a small part of the whole. This reduces the likelihood that individuals will intervene or resist violent actions. Mob justice often arises in situations where there is a clear division between us, the mob, and them, the perceived wrongdoer. The social identity theory suggests that individuals derive part of their identity from the groups that they belong to, leading to in-group favoritism and out-group hostility. When the crowd views the target as an outsider or a threat to their community, dehumanization occurs. The mob no longer sees the target as an individual, but as a symbol of wrongdoing, making it easier to justify violence or murder. Mob justice often arises in situations where people feel powerless, frustrated, or distrustful of formal institutions like the police or courts. When individuals believe that the justice system is ineffective or corrupt, they may resort to vigilantism as a way to assert control. This frustration can fuel violent behaviour because the crowd feels it must compensate for the failure of the wider system. Once violence begins, it can quickly escalate, and it's hard to stop. Small acts of aggression often lead to larger ones, a process often referred to as the snowball effect. In a mob, few individuals may start with relatively minor acts, but as others join in, the violence can spiral out of control. The presence of violence seems to legitimize further aggression, creating a feedback loop where each act of violence justifies the next, and usually, the next action will be even more brutal. Human beings have a strong tendency to conform to the behaviour of those around them, whether negative or positive. In a mob setting, individuals may look to others to determine how to act, especially if they are unsure what to do. The pressure to conform to the group's behaviour is especially strong in highly emotional or chaotic situations. Often, a mob has one or more instigators who ignite the group's emotions and direct the violence. These individuals may be more aggressive or charismatic and can push others to act in ways that they may not on their own. The leader's behaviour gives implicit permission for others to follow suit, encouraging more extreme actions. For some individuals, participation in mob justice can provide a sense of catharsis, a release of pent-up emotions like anger and frustration. The violence acts as an outlet for emotions that may have been building over time, especially in communities where there is a long-standing tension or unresolved grievances. In some cases, mob justice is influenced by cultural norms or historical precedents that legitimize collective action. In communities where there is a history of vigilantism or where state authority has traditionally been weak, people may see mob justice as a culturally accepted form of conflict resolution. Over the years, I have covered several cases of recorded instances of mob justice on the channel, and every time I watch such videos, I'm taken back by the frenzied nature of their brutality. Today, we discuss a video that has been lost over the years in the deep dark archives of the internet. A video that seemingly stems from Eastern Europe, very probably Russia. The video back in the day was relatively well known and was put in a similar bracket to Three Guys One Hammer, the Academy Maniacs video, as well as a whole host of clips released by Russian extremist gangs. I've been aware of the video for quite some time and have been meaning to cover it, but due to the fact that I could never find any conclusive backstory, or at least some information behind the video, I chose not to cover the case until now, following the discovery of a longer version of the video in question. The video over the years has actually been subject to some misinformation. Very often, the clip has been attributed to a pair of Russian serial killers known as the Academy Maniacs. The Academy Maniacs, two teenagers, Artem Anufriev and Nikita Lytkin, killed 6 and injured 9 in a brutal spree of carnage that took place between November of 2010 until April of 2011 in the Irkutsk Oblast region of Russia. The pair targeted the vulnerable of society, including people who were intoxicated, as well as homeless and women who were alone at night. Eventually, the psychotic pair were arrested and subsequently sent to long prison sentences for their heinous crimes. The motive behind the crimes seemed to stem from neo-Nazi ideology, essentially purging who they deemed as weak, as well as the pure desire to kill. The video has also been falsely attributed to the Dnepropetrovsk Maniacs, a pair of Ukrainian serial killers who murdered 21 people between June and July of 2007. The pair were responsible for the infamous Three Guys One Hammer murder video. Much like with the Academy Maniacs, the Dnepropetrovsk Maniacs also delved in neo-Nazi ideology. Politically extremist gangs are not an uncommon phenomenon in Russia, usually based off National Socialist ideology, and many such gangs over the years have been responsible for countless murders in the country, usually of the vulnerable in society. A pertinent example of this would be a group of serial killers known as the Cleaners, who also went by the moniker Project Sanitator 88. The Cleaners were made up of 5 members: Pavel Voitov, Elena Lobasheva, Artur Narcissov, Maxim Pavlov, and Vladislav Karatayev. The members met in extremist groups on the social media website VK. The leading role among the participants was taken by Pavel Voitov. He distributed the roles within the group, made decisions, and actively led the activities of the gang. The motives for the killings was the desire to clean the city and hatred of alcoholics and homeless people. According to investigators, they wanted to contrast themselves with others and show their superiority. They committed murders with particular cruelty in different parts of Moscow, as well as the Moscow Oblast and the Yaroslav Oblast from July 2014 to February of 2015. Victims were found not too far away from the Belaruski railway tracks, sometimes in the Eastern Administrative District. The corpses were subsequently found in deserted places where there were no surveillance cameras, under bridges, near fences, etc. In the space of just 7 months, the group had murdered at least 15 people, all of which were homeless, destitute, or suffering with substance abuse, though the actual number of murders committed may have been even higher. The gang would murder their victims in heinous ways, favouring the use of both blunt and bladed weapons. Some victims were stabbed repeatedly tens of times all over the body in frenzied attacks until they passed away, while others had their heads bashed in with hammers until they turned to mush. Eventually, the crew were arrested one by one, and ringleader Pavel Voitov would be sentenced to life in prison. Other members of the gang received lengthy prison sentences, but not life. There were rumours online surrounding the case that the perpetrators uploaded several recordings of the murders they committed onto the dark web, though this is not true. A video, however, was uploaded onto the Russian image board site called Devach in October of 2018 by an anonymous poster, and the video detailed the murder of several homeless people via the method of stabbing. Originally, an extended version of a clip was uploaded to a dark web forum, which was then subsequently ripped and uploaded to the Russian surface web. 2 boys were arrested for the string of murders, 17-year-old Vitaly Tishchenko and another unnamed teen. It's unclear on how many people the 2 teenagers killed. The video uploaded was titled Project Sanitator 88, which led people to believe that the murders were committed by the original cleaners crew. However, this wasn't the case, and it appears that the murders were copycat killings committed by the 2 teenage boys. Much like with the original cleaners crew, the murders were motivated by a hatred of the homeless and neo-national socialist ideology. The reason I bring these examples up of extremist killer crews based in Russia is because the content discussed in today's video, while still appearing to be fueled by the guise of mob justice, seems to follow similar trends to the aforementioned groups. The victims in said video were homeless, and were accused of a crime which led the perpetrators to enact brutal revenge, though it may be the case that the perpetrators were of extremist beliefs, and were just searching for reasons to justify the murder of those who they deemed surplus to requirements and useless eaters. In relation to an actual release date of said video, I can't ascertain exactly when the clip came out. The earliest upload I can find online is June of 2011. However, others claim it to have first surfaced during some time in the year 2009. There is also confusion as to where the clip was even filmed, with some speculating Ukraine, but most tend to think it comes from Russia. But nevertheless, what happens in the actual video? Just a quick warning, obviously the following discussion of a clip contains descriptions of violence, but also potential animal abuse. The longest version of the video is exactly 3 minutes and 52 seconds in length. As you play the clip, you are met with grainy footage that has been filmed in a wooded area, seemingly during springtime during the day. Due to the quality of the footage, it's hard to make out certain aspects of the video. In the initial first few seconds of the clip, you are met with the disturbing sight of somebody filming the corpse of an animal, which is a cat. It's badly rotted and decomposed, and you can see the ribcage protruding. The camera then moves and focuses on another decomposing body of a cat, followed by yet another corpse, which is slightly less decomposed. Allegedly, this is the motive behind the video. The perpetrators behind the filmed attack accused the victims of harming the animals. The clip then jump cuts, and it shows a group of 3 lads, and obviously the person filming makes up the 4th member of the group. The 3 men then proceed to run through the forest, seemingly looking for their victims. The men then find what appears to be a homeless encampment, which has a campfire. A woman can be heard screaming, and the screeches echo through the forest. The person filming eventually catches up, and you see one of the men furiously interrogating a homeless middle-aged woman who is laying on blankets on the ground. He may have already struck her, as her hands are protecting her head like she's been hit. It's up for debate what he asks for woman, but people seem to suggest he either asks, "Did you eat the cats?" or "Did you kill the cats?" or something along those lines. He progressively gets more and more angry and loud as he stands over the woman, interrogating her. She begins to panic and starts to cry as she tries to answer the man, but ultimately he is getting more and more frustrated. He kicks her, as does the cameraman several times, which causes the woman to cry even more. The person who conducts the interrogation then begins to hit the woman in the side of her ribs, but he's doing it in a motion that makes it look like he's stabbing her with something, which I think is the case. Possibly a very small knife or screwdriver, but it's really hard to tell. Again, I think he's stabbing her because there's also a noise that sounds like her coat is getting pierced as this is happening. Regardless, he performs the stabbing motion several times on the woman, and this causes her to fully scream extremely loud. Another one of the men then comes over after the woman appears to be stabbed, and he is carrying some kind of blunt weapon, but I've got no idea what it is. It kind of looks like a small one-handed shovel, but I'm not sure. He takes the tool, and then proceeds to smash the woman in the head at least 6 or 7 times extremely hard. The thudding noises are awful, and the screams stop almost immediately. The blows appear to have knocked the woman out. After each strike, the woman's head gets bloodier and bloodier. The man is striking so hard, so fast, and so frenzied that it even appears to startle the person filming. It sounds as if he instructs the man to stop. The person filming then begins to just focus the camera on the woman, and you see at this point that she hasn't actually been knocked out. She's quietly sobbing in a pool of her own blood. The men begin to ask her questions again, though she struggles to answer, and they resume to kicking her. The man who hit her with the metal object then takes a 2x4 wooden plank and again strikes her on the back of the head a couple of times. Somehow, she still isn't knocked out. At this point, the men actually leave the woman alone and take a wander deeper into the woods. The person filming walks down a dirt path behind the other 3 men, but the other 3 men then divert into the woods, and you hear them beating another person in the background. The person filming, however, keeps walking down the path until he comes across a prone man who has also been beaten. His head is covered in blood, and it appears he is unconscious. The side of his head looks mangled. The man filming then walks off to find the other members of the group, and while he is doing this, you hear the distant sounds of somebody being beaten. Eventually, he catches up to them, and the 3 men have set about another homeless man, and once again he is prone, and is a bloody mess. One of the men can be seen repeatedly throwing a large rock at the man's head, while the person who is carrying the 2x4 repeatedly rams it against the side of the man's skull. The rock throwing is incredibly brutal. Each time the rock is thrown, it literally bounces off a man's head. The person with the 2x4 then walks around the victim, and you get a better look at him, though his face is concealed, and he is wearing a rather sinister looking mask. It's either a skull mask or a clown mask. It's hard to tell due to the quality of the footage. The person with the wooden plank then beats the man all over the sides of his body. The last few seconds of the video, you see the rock being thrown at the victim's head 3 more times, but this time with more force, and the sound is sickening. At the beginning of the recording of the 3rd and final victim, he was still conscious, but by this point he isn't. He's either knocked out or dead already. The video ends as the man is beaten in the head with a 2x4 once more. In relation to the video, the story is that one of the attacked homeless died due to the assaults, and I'm assuming it's the last victim. Having said that, for all we know, the assaults didn't end when the camera stopped rolling, and it's possible that all 3 victims were killed. This is a case in which, as I said, I've been aware of for a while, and if anyone out there has any sources on it, such as articles, please do let me know in the comments, or even drop me a DM on X, so that I can pin it to this video. But anyway, another case of mob justice. Though as I said, there's potentially more to this story, so again, if anybody has any sources covering it, please do let me know. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video, if you can enjoy this sort of content. If you're new here, if you could subscribe, that would be much appreciated. Feel free to follow me on social media. I only have X or Twitter. Link is in the pinned comment. I also have Twitch as well, where we stream a variety of different games, but, you know, mainly DayZ, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, please check those out. But anyway, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.